There's a fire inside you can't ignore. Stand still? Not a chance. You're a lifelong learner who's come this far. Now, we're here to help you keep going further. Capella University. What can't you do? Visit capella.edu to learn more.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It is Eric Erickson. The full number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, there is breaking news that is happening right now. The President of the United States has said, and CNBC is now broadcasting the fact, the President has said that if we do not open the Strait of Hormuz and Iran does not let us open the Strait of Hormuz, we will wipe out Karg Island. Karg Island is where Iran sends its oil. Brent crude is now at $111 a barrel, which is still less than it was when Joe Biden was president. Gas prices are still less than they were when Joe Biden is president. Wipe out Karg Island. We'll see what happens. The president, however, is also insisting the United States is going to start escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz. This is happening now. The President of the United States insisting that if Iran is not willing to negotiate and allow the safe passage of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, we will wipe out Karg Island. Also, this is happening right now. Israel has struck Iranian air defense systems in the Caspian Sea area. This is now from the Wall Street Journal. Reporting is just hitting the wire as I'm talking to you. President Trump says the United States would destroy Iranian energy sites if discussions with a new and more reasonable regime didn't amount to a deal and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The president posted the comment on social media after Iran said it considered the United States' 15-point peace plan to be largely made up of excessive, unrealistic, and unreasonable demands. The Israeli military has struck military sites at Tehran's Imam Hussein University near the Caspian Sea. Israel's largest oil refinery was hit by an Iranian missile, while an airbase in the Baghdad International Airport complex was struck with rockets. 3 United Nations peacekeepers have been killed in southern Lebanon, and Trump has confirmed that the United States is speaking to leadership in Iran, including Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, one of the Iranian officials, who is a senior Iranian official. And now Iran appears to be rejecting all demands. So the United States says that we will blow up Karg Island if they don't come back to the table and negotiate. President laid it all out there. Again, for all of you people who have been saying, oh, we're going to control Karg Island. Nope, we're not going to control Karg Island. We're going to control the Abu Musa Islands and Larsk Island in the Strait of Hormuz in order to be able to get the oil reopened. Now, while all of this is happening, there is a scandal developing in Michigan, and I want you to ask yourself tonight, have you heard on the news? I want you to watch, whether you watch ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, I want you to ask yourself tonight on the evening news if you have heard about Abu el-Said. Have you heard about Abu el-Said? Watch the news tonight. And we can talk about it tomorrow, because if he were a Republican who said something like this, ABC, CBS, and NBC would be all over it. David Muir would be practically crying about it. Abu el-Said is running for the United States Senate in Michigan. He is campaigning with Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker is the progressive podcaster who has explained to his listeners how to make improvised explosive devices. He has gone to Cuba. He has gone to China and stood in Tiananmen Square and explained how he hates the United States and loves China, and yet he broadcasts from the United States, and he hates the United States. He hates Israel. He hates Christians. He hates capitalism. And this Democratic candidate for the Senate in Michigan is campaigning with Hassan Piker. He is a prominent Democrat, although he ran for governor and lost. He's trying to run again. He's hoping that the Muslim population of Dearborn, Michigan, will put him over the finish line in the Democratic primary. And someone has leaked an internal conversation, and I've got the audio for you. And I want you to hear what Abu El-Said, the Democratic candidate for Senate in Michigan, says about talking about the Iran situation.
So, this is going to destabilize the region. I also want to remind you guys that there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad today. So, I just don't want to comment on Khamenei at all. I don't think it's worth even touching that.
A lot of people in Dearborn, Michigan are sad that the Ayatollah Khamenei has been killed by the Americans, and so there's no reason to talk about that. The Washington Free Beacon got the audio, and I am amazed because someone from his staff had to leak the audio. How do you get an internal conversation? How do you get an internal conversation? This is from Elena Goodman, Washington Free Beacon, doing more investigative journalism than the New York Times or the Washington Post or USA Today. Michigan's left-wing Democratic Senate candidate Abu El-Said told staffers he wanted to avoid making a public statement about the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei or taking any public position on it at all because there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad about his death. If reporters pressed him to take a position, he said he would change the subject to Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just going to go straight to pedophilia, frankly, El-Sayed said. I'll just be like pedophile president decides that he doesn't like the front page news, so he decides to take us into another war. His remarks came during a conference call with his communications team on March 1st, during which the candidate and his communications team discussed his messaging on Operation Epic Fury. The previous day, February 28th, an Israeli airstrike killed the Iranian dictator who, as president of Iran and then as the country's supreme leader starting in 1989, oversaw the murder and torture of political opponents inside Iran and deadly terrorist attacks against the country's enemies, including hundreds of Americans. Quote, I also want to remind you guys, there's a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad today. We have the moral high ground here. If the reporters try to bait us into saying, yeah, but isn't it justified now that they took Khamenei outright? And I just think for us, we got to be like, no. El-Sayed is the most left-wing of the major candidates in the Democratic Party for Michigan's open Senate seat. Now, State Senator Mallory McMorrow, Democrat, in October said Israel's war against Hamas met the definition of genocide before lamenting that stance becoming a political purity test. She criticized U.S.-Israeli operations in the Islamic Republic. Representative Haley Stevens, the more moderate candidate, said Iran's state sponsor of terrorism across the globe has led to chaos and unchecked violence. El-Sayed has proposed pivoting to Jeffrey Epstein and to attacking Israel and American pro-Israel groups. El-Sayed has defended the talking points, saying that he needed to, quote unquote, take the whole shot. That is to accuse lawmakers of being tools of AIPAC, an American lobbying group, and of Israel. Later in the call, El-Sayed predicted that someone named Welch, presumably left-wing influencer Jennifer Welch, who released a podcast with the candidate, was going to bait me into the Israel stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, we have institutionalized anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party. We got anti-Semites on the right. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. You got the podcast segment of the right. You got Megyn Kelly now. It's always constantly questioning Israel and Israel's influence over the president. It's wild to me that Israel has so much power over the president of the United States, but can't shut these podcasters up. On the Democratic Party side, That level of anti-Semitism that has festered in the podcast right is infested the Democratic candidates and infested the Democratic Party. And it has to do a lot with, like, for example, the voter base of Dearborn, Michigan. I've mentioned now several times my friend Michael Youssef, Dr. Michael Youssef. He's at Church of the Apostles in Atlanta, Georgia. And he has written this book on Holy Alliance. Michael Youssef is from Egypt. In Egypt, they threw the Muslim Brotherhood out of the country because the Muslim Brotherhood is a nefarious group that actually in its writings at its founding said how they would sound Western and modern and tolerant. And they would rely on Western progressives to ally with them, and once dominant, would shut everybody up and impose Sharia law. Why is El Said a devout Muslim running as part of the Democratic Party? Because progressives are allied with Muslims, because progressives hate Christianity. Ultimately, we're in Holy Week. Might as well make this point because it's the most accurate point. You need to understand this. The things of the world hate the things of God. The things of the world hate the things of God. You've got to understand this. The things of the world hate the things of God. Radical Islam and progressive secularism, they're all things of the world. They hate the things of God. They'll be allied with each other against the things of God. So progressives believe that they are open and tolerant. And by embracing one of the most intolerant religions on the planet, they're showing their tolerance. They believe that Muslims are oppressed. And so in their intersectional frame of mind, they will embrace radical Islam. Now, for the record, I got a number of Muslim friends. I grew up in the Middle East. I got a number of Muslim friends. And they're the ones who speak up the most on this, that the Western left has embraced the wrong segment of Islam. And the reason is because the moderate Muslims who do not want to impose Sharia law, who do not want to take over the country, who just want to worship peacefully, they stay out of politics by and large. And because they stay out of politics, why do moderate Muslims stay out of politics? Because their focus is Islam and they do not view it as political. Therefore, they are not political. There are people all the time who say, well, these Muslims need to speak up. They just don't listen. They do speak up. They oftentimes speak up at fear for their lives. But they also don't engage in politics, and that's part of the problem, because there are people on the right who think, well, they got to speak up and get in politics on our side, like the radical Islamists have with the left. No, you misunderstand the nature of their religion. There are peaceful Muslims in the world who just want to practice their religion and be left alone in the West. They have fled the radical Islamists of the East. And the progressives don't like those Muslims because they're not political. And the left believes that everything must be a political project. So they align with the radical Muslims who, in their private writings, as Michael Youssef documented in his book on Holy Alliance, which you can text, engage to 33777, order a copy of, he writes about how the Islamic radicals working through the Muslim Brotherhood, CARE, and other groups have very intentionally allied with progressives because the progressives are the fools. They have no values. Progressives believe that if they show themselves to be open and tolerant of Islam in a nation that is majority Christian, they're proving their tolerance. They're actually proving themselves to be super foolish because of what will happen to them. So a guy like El Said will become a progressive on the left and use the left to advance his agenda that is anti-American, anti-Western, anti-assimilation, anti-Israel. And he does not want to offend the Muslims of Dearborn, Michigan, wherein a large contingent of Islamic radicals who support the Ayatollah live. We are rapidly getting to a point that we're going to have to probably overcorrect on immigration from the Middle East. We have let too many people into this country who not only refuse to assimilate, but want to wipe us all out. You have a Muslim Democratic candidate running for office in Michigan when we are at war with the nation, with the world's leading sponsor of terror, and he won't denounce the Ayatollah or at least affirm the death of the Ayatollah because he's afraid of offending some immigrants into this country who are on the side of the bad guys. By the way, the lawyer for the campaign reached out to the Free Beacon and said, quote, "I write to inform you that the audio recording that you base the below questions on was obtained without the campaign's permission and without knowledge that individuals were being recorded. The campaign is considering its legal options against the individual in question. Given these circumstances, the campaign expects that you will take this into account in determining whether to proceed with any reporting on this matter." It is amazing that someone from his own campaign is so concerned that person decided they needed to leak the call. This is where the Democrats are headed, institutionalized anti-Semitism. The Christ is a 4-part Easter audio epic. It brings the gospel narrative vividly to life, from the humble manger to the victorious resurrection. Through world-class voice talent, cinematic soundscapes, and stirring music, The Christ launches Easter week 2026. The first episode drops March 30th. You can listen to The Christ for free wherever you get podcasts, or go to thechristpodcast.com. You've got world-class talent participating in this. It makes it amazing to listen to. It keeps it engaging. It's the first ever full-scale audio dramatization of Jesus' life across 4 immersive episodes using cinematic quality sound, music, and performances, featuring more than 100 different characters and advanced sound designs to deliver the quality of a feature film through the medium of audio. Check it out at thechristpodcast.com. That's thechristpodcast.com, or your favorite podcast app, wherever it may be, rooted in biblical truth and theological integrity. It's thechristpodcast.com. Welcome. I just received this from a listener. Happened over the weekend. A young man has been taken into custody in California over the weekend. He vandalized a century-old statue of Jesus inside a Catholic church, Our Lady of Mount Carmel in California. And then he began reciting verses from the Quran. The statue, more than 100 years old, is in pieces. We'll see how California treats this attack on a Catholic church, happening more and more around the country. And again, here's part of the problem is we have not just allowed in Muslims in this country who just wish to quietly practice their faith. We have allowed in radical Islamists who believe that this country must be shifted in their direction. And those people don't want to assimilate towards the American way of life. They want Americans to assimilate towards their way of life. And they lash out. And if we can't discern between the two groups, then we're going to have to overcorrect, I'm afraid, and stop immigration of both groups. And that's a real tragedy because there actually are Muslims in the world who want to escape that level of tyranny and that level of hostility towards other religions and the rest of the world. But if we can't discern between the two, it's better to be safe than sorry. And we are clearly breaking down assimilation in this country in ways that is not safe for this country or the people of this nation. That's just sad to see. 877-973-7425. We will be back with your phone calls in a minute. But first, and I got to tell you about what happened to Congressman Buddy Carter, Republican from Georgia, got caught by TMZ. Wait until you hear the story. It's actually kind of funny. Bad on TMZ. But first, let me tell you about Old Glory Bank, my bank. Old Glory Bank is a bank that is online, headquartered in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and you can bank with them at oldglorybank.com/Eric. Now, Old Glory Bank is actually a bank that was started by conservatives because of the debanking trends, where progressives were telling banks to stop doing business with conservative businesses and conservative individuals. And so Old Glory Bank came into being. Now, you don't have to worry about it so much with Donald Trump, but hopefully he'll and his policies will remain for a while. But the left is still trying to use shareholder clout to get other banks to regulate how you bank through them. Not Old Glory Bank. They believe in your freedom to bank. And if it is legal and lawful for you to bank in a way, they want you to be able to do it. So you can use your debit card to buy a gun, for example, unlike with some big banks. You can't do that. At Old Glory Bank, they treat their businesses well as well. They get to know you. They're very hands-on with you because they recognize they're an online bank, and some businesses may be a little concerned about that. And so they really spend time getting to know you as a business. So if you ever need lending, they're there for you. They understand your concerns. You can even deposit cash at Old Glory Bank. They've made it very easy. Your kids can do it as well. oldglorybank.com/Eric, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. Let's go to Tom. Been waiting patiently here. Tom, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Eric. And I was hoping that, we who love America know what the left has done to the educational system and turned our own children, and some are now adults who have children, against the country. So it's going to take a good effort to reverse that. But what better opportunity to do so than the lead up to our 250th birthday, July 4th. So I can tell real quick a little story about the guy with the biggest signature on the Declaration of Independence and his quote outside of Boston as it was watching his city burn to the ground. And I think people who have voices like yours, not voices like mine, a voice for newsprint, would do the country a great favor in doing similar things, hopefully daily, but at least weekly, as we lead up to that event that the left is doing its mightiest to ruin. John Hancock, as the city of his business and birth was burning to the ground, is said to have made this statement: "Let Boston burn, though it make John Hancock a beggar if it serves the cause." And those stories, compelling and patriotic as they are, show the sacrifice that was enunciated in the last phrase of the Declaration of Independence, which was, "And to one another we pledge our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor." So I would like your listeners to maybe call in stories, or for you and your staff to deliver those stories. That would be great if we could do this daily.
So, Tom, it's funny you bring this up because actually we've had these discussions. I've got a buddy of mine, Caleb, who is actually involved in some of the planning for the 250th anniversary and some of the stories out there. And so we're actually being pretty deliberate in thinking our way through this as we head towards the 250th anniversary of the country, because there are some fantastic stories out there to remind people of the greatness of the country. And for those of you who don't know, there's a book called Fox's Book of Martyrs. And it tells the stories of the Christian martyrs to the beginning of the church. And it was a book written to bolster other people's faiths by talking about the martyrs who came before them. One of my favorites is Polycarp, who was a student of the Apostle John. In fact, one of the ways we know John wrote Revelation and the Gospel of John is through Polycarp, who was a real person documented to have existed. We know how he died. The Romans burned him to death because he refused to renounce his faith. The Roman legions came to grab him from his home, I believe in Smyrna in Turkey. He made them dinner. He fed them. He prayed for them and then went with them. And the local Roman administrator, begged him to renounce his faith because everyone in the town loved him. And he said, "I'm 80 and some odd years old, and Jesus has never rejected me. Why would I reject him?" He climbed up into the fire. They didn't even tie him to the post. They knew he would stay there and die. And the legend is the flames did not burn him. They wound up having to kill him by sword, because the flames wouldn't kill him. And people tell themselves these stories to embolden their faith. And there are plenty of stories of the founders of this country and of the people in this country over the last 250 years who have made the country great. And so we are being deliberative in how we go about doing that as we head towards July 4th this year, and we will. By the way, before we get there, we are in March Madness season. And I hope you all saw the UConn Duke game. Not to make it painful for those of you who support Duke. My daughter's a big Duke fan. Almost went to Duke, and they were going to win that game until the last 0.3 of a second. And then it went the other way, and it went badly. At the other way, UConn wound up winning the. It was an impressive end. It's what I'm not a big basketball fan, but March Madness is always impressive when you see these sorts of things. I mean, the High Point University turn of events and the like have just been incredible to see. I remember a number of years ago when my alma mater, Mercer University, beat Duke, and it blew everybody's minds. And I never had to tell people after that where I went to school. Now I got to turn to TMZ. God bless them. TMZ has encouraged their readers to send pictures of members of Congress who are on vacation, refusing to go back to Washington as the government shuts down. The government of the United States has, the Senate is refusing to go back and put final touches on a plan to reopen the government. And so TMZ is encouraging its readers to send them photos of members of Congress who are out and about on vacation. They've sent pictures of Lindsey Graham at Disney World. I don't understand. I don't know. That is who I don't know why he's there. I'm assuming he's with family of some kind. But they have pictures of Buddy Carter. Buddy Carter is a congressman from the state of Georgia. He was seen in Charleston. He was seen out and about. And they tried to shame Congressman Buddy Carter. Buddy Carter, just so you know, is running for the United States Senate in Georgia. His opponent, Mike Collins, another Republican congressman from Georgia, was seen standing in line. I got to say, for Mike Collins, running for the Senate in Georgia, wants to challenge John Ossoff, great PR by Mike Collins. He stood in line with other Americans, made sure his photo got out there of him standing in line instead of bypassing the lines like members of Congress get to do. Well, Buddy Carter was seen in Charleston at a baseball game, and TMZ sought to shun and shame Buddy Carter for not being in Washington, D.C. Turns out Buddy Carter was there for his grandkid. His grandson was playing baseball, and he told the press he wasn't going to miss his grandson's baseball game for anything. Family first, and good for him. No shame there. He was in the House, passed the resolution the other day to fund the government that the Senate chose to reject. The Senate's not coming back, and he was not going to loiter in Washington, D.C., knowing the Senate wasn't going to come back when he go watch his son's baseball game. And good for him. Good for him, not willing to be shamed for going out and seeing his son play baseball. I'm not opposed to what TMZ is doing. I actually think it's a good thing. I think it's very notable. We've seen Nancy Mace and we've seen Debbie Wasserman Schultz and John Thune and others bypassing the lines at the airports last week so that they could cut the line and get on their planes. Now, what I also find notable, by the way, is that in Atlanta, Houston, and elsewhere, the lines are mostly normal. A buddy of mine flew to Washington, D.C. today and said that the wait at a domestic terminal in Atlanta was 5 minutes. It was a minute when he got to Washington, D.C. The Hartsfield-Jackson Two Dead Mares International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, now has up its tracker again. And I can tell you right now in Atlanta, I'm looking at it live, it's a 6-minute wait at the international terminal. It's a 2-minute wait for the main checkpoint in Atlanta. It is 2 minutes on the north side of the airport. And it is 0 minutes in the pre-check line. You can walk right through the pre-check line in TSA in Atlanta right now. The lines have returned to normal because, as I mentioned in the first hour, the President of the United States of America decided on his own through an executive order to declare an emergency and demanded that they pay TSA workers who this weekend received a paycheck for the first time in a month. It was bizarre that Democrats in Congress decided to hold these people hostage. Now, Nancy Pelosi is out there insisting that it is a Republican problem. This is Nancy Pelosi with Chris Jansen on MS Now.
Well, we were prepared to vote for what the Senate did, which was exactly what you described, which was to vote for the Department of Homeland Security, except ICE. That's what the Senate voted for in a bipartisan way. We were thinking the next day that we would probably be voting for that, except the Republicans said they wouldn't do that. So when you're saying what isn't enough, go ask them. Go ask them. What they didn't like about that bill is that it was not reinforcing the negative behavior of ICE.
You got that? Ask Republicans, when is it enough? Now, they want to hold TSA hostage. I don't think they're going to be able to hold TSA hostage. It looks like the president's bypass. We'll see if the Democrats are actually able to file a lawsuit and get a judge to agree with them. That would be terrible, terrible PR for the Democrats if they did that. Now, I want to play an audio soundbite because this comes from a caller last week talking about the budget and the spending in Washington, D.C. Jerome Powell is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and his time is almost up. And when he leaves the chairmanship of the Federal Reserve, is not going to leave the Federal Reserve in large part, frankly, out of spite. The president's team has decided to pursue a criminal investigation into Jerome Powell over renovations at the Federal Reserve building that predate Jerome Powell. Republicans and Democrats alike in Congress have said that it is an inappropriate investigation. They are refusing to confirm his replacement. So essentially, Jerome Powell will get to stay on the Fed, and his replacement will not get to replace him because of the heavy-handed nature of how the Republicans in the administration have pursued an investigation of Powell. And he's talking about our debt. And it's becoming a real issue in large part because of the baby boomers retiring and Medicare and Social Security. This is Jerome Powell speaking a short time ago.
I don't think we know what that number is, or sort of ratio of debt to GDP, where it would be a problem. There are, of course, Japan being a great example, there are countries that have much higher levels of sovereign debt to their GDP than we do. What's clear is that our debt is growing much faster. The federal government debt is growing substantially faster than our economy, and that ratio is going up. And, you know, in the long run, that's kind of the definition of unsustainable. The level of the debt is not unsustainable, but the path is not sustainable. And so it's really important that we get back to, we don't have to pay the debt down. We just need to have, primary balance and begin to have the economy actually growing better, growing more quickly than the economy. It will not end well if we don't do something fairly soon. This is not the Fed's job, of course, and I pretty much limit myself to those high-level points which essentially everyone ignores.
Everyone ignores, including Congress. It's Congress's job. You could actually resolve this by bumping up the retirement age a little bit. You could also resolve it by not having the millionaires and billionaires be able to collect their Social Security, even though they paid into the system. It could be changed, or have them continue to pay more for Social Security over time, as opposed to like the first $100,000, $150,000 that is the current policy. There are ways to solve the problem, but right now, Republicans and Democrats alike in Congress don't want to solve the problem. And that is going to have a serious, serious economic fallout in the country because of the situation in Congress and because of Congress's unwillingness to resolve it. I'm glad to hear the Federal Reserve Chairman talking about this. Behind the scenes in Washington, D.C., Republicans and Democrats both acknowledge the problem, but neither side actually wants to solve the problem because they know if they solve the problem on their own side, they're going to get the blame for it because it'll come with readjusting benefits for Social Security and Medicare. It'll come with real cuts. It may even have to come with tax increases at this point. But both sides are bankrupting this country. It is a bipartisan bankruptcy problem that must be resolved. And I would encourage the members of the United States Congress to listen to the chairman of the Federal Reserve, because the incoming chairman, by the way, agrees with him that this is a congressional problem. They're the ones who caused the problem. They're the ones who are going to have to fix it. The governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp, has by executive order waived the gas tax in the state of Georgia. I'm looking at AAA's website right now. Georgia has some of the lowest gas prices in the United States right now. The absolute lowest in the nation is Oklahoma and Kansas, which are at $3.25 for a gallon of unleaded gas. Georgia's at $3.58. You know where the highest is in the nation? Of course, California, $5.87 for a gallon of regular unleaded gas in California, the highest in the nation. The western states, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, Oregon, Idaho, Washington, California, and then Alaska and Hawaii have the absolute highest prices. What's bizarre is that California has higher prices than Hawaii. Why? Because California continues to shut down oil refineries in that state over environmental laws. California is intentionally restricting the supply of gasoline to western states because of climate change. Go to the East Coast, the cheapest in the entire East Coast is Georgia. In fact, Georgia right now has the cheapest gas east of the Mississippi River. Mississippi is number 2 at $3.58, and Alabama is number 3 at $3.64, the Gulf Coast. South Carolina is $3.67, and then it goes up from there. Florida, by the way, just so you know, is at $3.95, but that has a lot to do with taxes in Florida. Still cheaper than California. California is ruining Western state economies. There's a big story over the weekend, and I think the New York Times, maybe the Wall Street Journal, but I think the New York Times, about the gubernatorial race in Nevada. The Democrats are hoping to cash in on angst over the Nevada economy to oust Joe Lombardo, the governor of Nevada. And part of the reason is gas prices are so high. And the Democrats are blaming the governor in Nevada, Joe Lombardo, for gas prices when the reality is it's California. California has been causing those oil refineries to go out of business, and there aren't enough pipelines now to supply the western states with their gas needs. As a result, California is materially impacting the economies of the other western states because of the environmental practices of California. Joe Lombardo, the governor of Nevada, is essentially having his reelection held hostage by Gavin Newsom, who'll be totally fine with Lombardo losing because Lombardo's a Republican. And there's not a whole lot that the governor of Nevada can do when California supplies the oil and gas to Nevada. But there's also the economy in Las Vegas. I'm actually taking some friends of mine with Charlie and me out at the end of April to play golf and see some folks out there. And the costs in Las Vegas have gotten astronomical. Now, it's not a family-friendly place to go anymore. It's too expensive for families to go to Las Vegas. It's becoming a real problem in the western states now, all these prices. Folks, I got to tell you about Perfectly Snug. If you go to perfectlysnug.com/Eric, perfectlysnug.com/Eric, you can get one of these mattress toppers. My wife, I hurt my back the other day after doing deadlifts. My back, the form was great, but my back still didn't like it. And my wife's like, do you need a hot pad? I was like, nope, I'll turn the mattress topper on to heat. And it has heated my back and helped my back tremendously. The Perfectly Snug mattress topper cools or warms you as you need. It can come on automatically, and it can adjust through the night to monitor your temperature to make sure you're never too hot or never too cold. Or if you need your back warmed up, it can do that too. Perfectlysnug.com/Eric. It's a mattress topper. And unlike some, it doesn't use a water flow. It doesn't use high capacity like air filtration and air conditioning stuff that then pumps out hot air elsewhere. It uses fans and wires, and it just works. Even Oprah Winfrey likes this thing. Perfectlysnug.com/Eric. Sign up with Perfectly Snug. Get one of their mattress toppers. It'll keep you cool. It'll keep you warm. Perfectlysnug.com/Eric. You'll save some money. Perfectlysnug.com/Eric.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.